Hello, welcome back to another episode of Her Drive podcast. As always, I'm super excited for today's guest. Her name is Marla Mervis Hartmann. She is an author, Reiki master, TEDx speaker, coach, and a practitioner of Tantra. And I'm super excited for all of the knowledge and wisdom that she has. A lot of our guests are multi-hyphenates, which means that they have an amazing background in a lot of different things, super curious and deeply vulnerable, not only in exploring things for themselves, but what they bring forth to the world. So I'm very pumped for what Marla has to say. Hello and welcome to Her Drive, Marla.
Yay. Awesome. I've been listening to so many of your podcasts and really diving into the whole sovereignty series that you did. And that I've been really exploring that idea of sovereignty in my body and been meditating on that word. It's been my word this year. So I was really drawn to that series that you did.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was something that, again, it was just so intuitively necessary for my own journey. And it was a really beautiful combination of women that I'd been following or known for years that really do sovereignty quite well. So I love that you found the series and now you get to be a guest on Her Drive.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I love the idea of having chosen a word for the year. And this is the first year that I've ever done that. And my word, which I'm looking over at it now, is miraculous. Yeah.
That is a good one. That just like opens up so much, right? It just
Yeah.
allows for so much possibility and potential and beyond even our little bodies and our own mind, just the connection to all that is. So that's great. I love
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Marla, let's dive into your story and all that you do, which I know it's a small window to explain a lot, but for the listeners, what's really landing for you to share about yourself?
Yeah. So I am creator of my work is called Love Your Body, Love Yourself. And so the platform that I hold is to really allow mainly women come to me for this issue, although I do have a lot of men on my roster as well, but learning how to love themselves, love their bodies, um, connect to their bodies, attune with their bodies. And a lot of the negative body image, the diet culture,
Mhm.
the way that we as women have normalized putting our bodies down, making our bodies not worth joy, pleasure, and how food is so wrapped up in that. The restriction, the dieting, and then the binging, the emotional eating, and how deeply that is tied to society and what society has given us as this norm that we're supposed to live in. And then also deeply connected to the traumas that we hold and the ways that we express ourselves in our lives and the pain that we have in our bodies can often show up in not feeling worthy and not loving ourselves, putting ourselves down, a lot of self criticism. And I know this, and the reason I share this is because that's been my journey. I really struggled with an eating disorder, a lot of negative body image, and what what really turned that around for me, there weren't a lot of Marlas out there at that time, right? Like there are women who do this work, right? The body image work, the sensuality work, the freedom with food work. But at that point, I was just piecing things together and putting together this program for myself, right? Of getting support. And I learned a lot through my practice of Reiki. And I know you just had a woman on not too long ago that shared a lot about that and really the practice of unconditional love.
Mm.
And that really changed a lot. And then even through that, I got to realize, wow, I have so much disconnection from my body and from my sensuality and from my pleasure. It's like
Mm.
I moved my body, I fed my body, and I'm a very active, like I love to dance and move and but it was all connected to, can I get this body smaller so that I can be okay to live in it? So I disconnected from, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Do I need to rest? How can I allow for, more pleasure, more connection with myself, and then ultimately with lovers, with partners in relationship, right? So there was a lot of deep healing around sexuality and even more, I would say, sensuality, and really allowing that. And I've seen that as the connection for so many people.
Hmm. So much of what you shared really lands for me, from having, eating disorders to wanting to make the body smaller and doing these exercises, movements. I'm very similar. I can't go a day without doing some sort of movement or else I feel a little off. It just feels really good for me within my space and moving energy around. But I can definitely see the disconnect in my past from moving for the sheer joy of the pleasure of moving one's body, right? And it's almost like being performative or always having a purpose for the movement rather than just moving for, that feels really nice.
Exactly. It's like taking something that's pleasurable and turning it into like a whip, right? So I would go to like ecstatic dance and I'd be wanting to slowly move or whatever. And I'm like, no, you got to keep it up because we got to burn some calories. We didn't
Yeah.
exercise earlier, right? So there was always this underbelly, um, I guess pun intended, right? Of like wanting to make the belly smaller, right? Wanting to look a certain way rather than just the pleasure of being in the body. And that is not easy. I say
Mhm.
that and I realize the intensity of what that even means, right? Because we're all moving away from our bodies, right? We're in present moment and we're thinking about the next thing that we're doing. It's like craving rest. And then I go to lie down and I just want to get up because I'm thinking about the next thing to do, right? Like being present with ourselves is not something that we're taught, right? And then so here we are wanting to have beautiful, wonderful sexual experiences. And it's like we don't have the capacity to hold a very big charge because it's just like it's like it's too much pleasure, right? Same with the food. Like, oh my gosh, this is so pleasurable. It must be bad.
Mm.
It must be bad. And so one of the things I realized in healing my relationship with my food is I really thought that, well, let's take like chocolate cake. So the belief was I cannot control myself with food. I cannot control myself with desserts and chocolate and cake. So here's the chocolate cake, right? Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking about it during the day and what am I going to do and how much am I going to eat of it and oh my gosh and no 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 and, and it's just like and then there's the chocolate cake and I take all of that energy and I'm not present in my body. And then I just start shoving that food in my mouth because I want it, but I'm ashamed for having it. And so then I eat it and then I didn't get any pleasure from it. So I eat more of it
Hmm.
and maybe a little bit more. And now I have shame for eating it. And so the way I deal with the shame is I eat even more of it. And now my belief is I have no control around this type of food.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping everyone can see that the setup in that is, wow, I get to eat this yummy chocolate cake. Wow, I get to smell it. I get to enjoy it. I get to, commune with this and allow myself to even feel a little naughty around it if I want to, if that opens up something, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
and then that's the connection to the body. That's that connection to our sensuality.
I love that you said like, oh, the naughtiness of it. Yeah, like letting yourself having like a special little treat, just a little something something, and removing that shame from the cake. And I've definitely like shame spiraled, eaten. I'm like, well, if I've already ate this much already, I might as well just eat it all, and then it's gone. And then I'll just have these bad feelings for like one period of time, rather than the multiples that it would take for me to finish it in a proper amount of courses.
Absolutely, right? And then there's something wrong with you. And then I want to spin back to what you just said around the naughtiness because this is really important. I think a lot of women will use food as a way to rebel.
Mm.
It's unconscious. It's, it's deep in there. It's like, you're not going to tell me what to eat. And it shows up in the control. That's where a lot of the, restriction, the anorexia can be. It's like, I'm going to control. And I've seen it a lot with my clients who are dealing with anorexia. It's like the craziness that was going on in the household or whatever felt out of control. It's like, this is the one thing I can control, right? So there's the rebellion there. And then there's the rebellion. And I know how it would show up for me. It's like, I've been the good girl, right? And it's like, I am not eating that good girl food,
Mm.
right? So I'm just going to shove this thing in my mouth, right? So there's the acknowledgement that, yes, like the acknowledgement that the rebel lives in there, that the rebel is alive, and really tuning into that part of me. And when I tune into that part of me, I don't have to use it against me.
Mm.
I can tune into it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna eat this. That's right. Right. And then now I'm in that energy rather than I'm rebelling against some unconscious deep thing that then now I'm ashamed of myself for. So
Yeah.
that's where the consciousness comes in. That's where the deep understanding of self, that's where the leaning into some of these things around our food, which some people I've seen is like it has to be really, really bad in order for them to take action,
Mm.
right? Like they don't have this full blown eating disorder,
Yeah.
because it's so normalized. Diet culture is so normalized. And I'm like, wait, but you don't realize what you're missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
The impact you're missing out on, the relationship, the connection, the even being with friends and girlfriends, right? The block that we have because of the discomfort that we're feeling in our own bodies.
Mm. Yeah, I think all of that is really sage words to be shared. And I keep thinking I'm trained in Ayurveda on a very intense, but still Ayurveda is so complex. But I'd say I'm still a beginner after a year and a half of training on it, intense each week. But one of the most beautiful things that Ayurveda has really ingrained in me is to have the relationship with the food that I'm eating. And that is connecting with it, praying over it, being conscious and just with my food when I'm eating and not just mindlessly eating or being on my phone or just like, and I pray over my food and I have for a very long time, but just to pause and acknowledge this beautiful plate that I have. And it creates this very connected experience. And I feel like I'm infusing my food with gratitude. And I pray to Mother Earth. And then I pray as a prayer of gratitude for the people that helped harvest it, prepare it, haul it, whatever it took. And now I have this money to then have it before me and consume it. And I have less of this anxiety around the food that I eat. I have a lot more gratitude for sure and just presence with it. And I feel like even my digestive system is different from just this simple practice of gratitude. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Oh, so glad that you just completely laid that out from your own experience. And it is so right on. So literally it does help us with our digestion. It helps us to assimilate. It helps us to allow the food to serve us, right? So if we're eating and we literally are feeling danger, danger, we're telling our body, oh my gosh, this food that's coming in is not safe. It's bad. So the whole system and the gut and everything is like danger, danger, danger. And it has all these stress hormones. And it's like and then we get all, blah, blah, and then we say, see, I can't eat that food. And it's like, well, if you told your body and you really connected with that food and said, allow me to, get the nourishment and just like what you said, I don't even need to repeat it. It was so beautiful. Right. And it's like that nervous system connection to our food is so important. That's not always easy for people because there is so much trauma with food that they don't even know that they can't do that because they're eating on the run, and there's a reason for that, right? But when I was first in recovery, I was working with this woman, and she was Buddhist, and she had a whole bunch of crazy food people like me that couldn't sit with their food, right? And she had us literally walk in, and sit down and take a bite, and this whole, like, I don't know, 2 hours over this one meal, and it, for me at that time, was freaking excruciating. It's like, I just wanna get this over, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Ah, yes. I remember I was like 22. It was my first introduction to formal meditation. I was at this center and it was a whole 4-day program. I'll never forget they gave each of us a cold grape with our eyes closed. And like we had to just go through this beautiful, so exquisite exercise of like feeling the cold grape, feeling the texture, and then we could open our eyes and we could look at it. And then we would just look at it and roll it around. And then we had to place it on our tongue and just feel it then. And then we had to crush it and then just feel the juice without chewing. And that was so hard not to chew. But anyway, we
Right.
were finally able to chew it and then like swallow it. And it was the best fucking grape I'd ever had, because of all of this time and attention that was given to it. So precious.
Mm. So
Yeah.
precious. I mean, it's such foreplay, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the slowing down to be present and
Mm,
to suck the life out of every moment.
most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we've been dancing around sensuality a little bit here and the connection with food, and I would love to see how that translates for you and being more connected in our own bodies and in a different way.
Yeah, well, I think, that idea of how we do one thing is how we do everything is really valid here, right? And I have also found that a lot of my clients who have had eating disorder or had issues have had some sort of violation, have had some sort of sexual trauma. And
Mm,
I honestly have this, I don't know if it's the greatest belief, but I do feel like as women, deep in ourselves, deep in our the lifetimes that we have lived, there is that imprint of violation. It's there, right? It's the feeling of sometimes not feeling safe in our own bodies, right? And when we have had these moments in our life where we've felt violated, um, or a lot of sexual trauma, lots of times food will come in as the way, or negative body image or control will come in as the way to actually deal with that. Because it's the way to connect with the body, but it also kind of squeezes the shame, right? And gives it a space to live and be, right? So when we can really unwind that, and we can, what's beautiful about it is that when we unwind it, yes, there are these moments of deep healing that can feel like, oh my gosh, right? But then there's love there. There's pleasure there. There's possibility there. And there's the safety that we find within our own bodies,
mhm.
right? One of your podcasts, if I'm saying her name right, Simone Farshi.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was sharing about her, I believe I'm pretty sure this was a podcast, it was her saying this, that she was talking about a retreat that she led, and how she has the women right off the bat come in and take their clothes off, and they sit in circle, and how that just sheds something immediately, and how the bodies are normalized, and how vulnerability immediately comes up to the surface and is present. And what often happens is that people will say that they don't want intimacy because they don't want their body to be seen, right? Oh, my belly, oh, my butt, oh, I don't want him to notice me, oh, I don't want to date until I have lost this amount of weight. It's this weight, I have confidence. And then when I have that confidence, then, right,
Mm-hmm.
there's always something before that.
Yeah.
And and there is something about being yourself and having confidence. And sometimes when we're really um, not feeling that we're authentically in the weight that we're supposed to be, I honor that. And at the end of the day, it's usually not the food, it's the fact that we feel naked, we feel vulnerable, we feel seen by the other. And it is in that deep being seen that can feel scary.
Yeah.
Whoa, this person sees me. I am bringing my soul to this experience. And the first thought for a lot of people is, he's looking at my butt. He
Mm-hmm.
just grabbed my belly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, okay, get it. But
Mm-hmm.
is there a deeper experience? And this isn't just in relationships who are like just starting, just having a lover. This can really show up in long-term relationships
Yeah.
where it's like, whoa, I just went to a next level. And right. So then we shut off our sexuality, we shut off this opportunity. And that's where sometimes we really need support in that area, you
Yeah.
know, because some of these places are really, it's hard to navigate on our own. Which is why it's so great that you're sharing all these amazing women who can, hold space for a lot of other women's journeys.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you on all of that. And I think it's a really revolutionary time where there's so many of us stepping up to heal or have healed and now stepping into the light to show others that they're not alone and that they're loved and supported. And in their tenderness, there is a lot of strength. And I love vulnerability so much, right? Because being vulnerable equals being brave. And, what is on the other side of stepping through vulnerability and braveness is like you get joy, you get love, you get connection, whether that's with yourself first or, and it leads to being with others or vice versa. Like vulnerability is my superpower. And I just really hold people in such a tender space and knowing that we all have our areas where we feel really insecure. And I've had a lot over time. It's been funny to watch them transition. And I love that you mentioned that this can even show up and many times does show up in long-term relationships. Like you would think, oh, you've been together forever. How could you possibly have anything left to be vulnerable about? But it still exists.
It still does, because we can be in a relationship and still hold things away. We hold things away from ourselves.
Yes.
We don't let ourselves look at some of these deep places because it feels like it's too much. And, like the book says, the body keeps the score. So we may think that we're not addressing it, but it's there and it's finding its life in us. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I
Well,
love,
before you'd mentioned like Reiki, you are a Reiki master. Some of the guests know what Reiki is, some may not. If you want to touch on that, but you'd mentioned how it has helped you quite a bit, and I'd love to touch on that just briefly.
yeah. So Reiki is, it's a spiritual practice and then it's a hands-on healing practice or a healing modality. And essentially, it is connecting with universal life force. It's connecting with this higher vibration of love, the energy of unconditional love. And that's actually, isn't that what we all want? Right? Is unconditional love. If we go into every issue, challenge that we have at the very core, that's what we're wanting. And so Reiki allows us to connect with that. And so it releases stress in our body. And that is physical, emotional, spiritual, all the layers, right? All the lifetimes. And through healing these things, we come back to ourselves. We come back to the energy that we are, this authentic being. So it's not about, some people are like, can you feel my dark energy? What is my dark energy? Like, and I'm like, no, it's like Reiki doesn't work that way. Reiki just goes in and magnifies your light.
Mm.
And through magnifying the light, some of these parts of us, they melt away, they come up to be seen and worked through, but we essentially have more of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I found Reiki at a support group that I was going to for food. And this woman had one hand on her heart and one hand on her belly, and she was just sitting there like, just kind of loving herself up. And I actually was like, what does she think she's doing? She's like blatantly loving herself in public,
The
right?
audacity.
The audacity of her, right? Like I was so activated around it. And then, of course, I was attracted to it. So I went up to her and I said, "What were you doing?" And she said, "It's doing Reiki." And she took me to my first Reiki circle. And that's where I just realized that this system was like so for me. It was so, I was running around New York, New York City with like chicken with my head cut off, right? And I had no tools, and food was my tool to calm me down. And so it wasn't until kind of like later that I looked, I'm like, oh my gosh, Reiki has been there every moment. And so here I am needing to love myself and having no access to even knowing how to do that. And so by the practice of putting my hands on myself and being in this higher vibration of love, a lot of these things went away or they became more obvious. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to myself. I can't believe I'm just talking to myself like that. It's so in contrast to the wonderful feeling that I'm feeling. And then it was through Reiki that I realized through like the healing of that I'm like, whoa, this sexuality piece is a lot, is what needs to be looked at, right? So I feel like Reiki for me has kind of like been my gateway drug to all spiritual practices and everything. It's just like opened me up. And I've been teaching it and doing it for over 20 years. And it's one of those things like, I'm still doing that. Wow. Right. Like
Yes.
I still teach classes. I teach Reiki Master long courses. I teach, I do long distance healing on Zoom. So it's really a part of everything because it's kind of the macro and the micro.
Mhm.
It's love.
Yeah.
Right. So with my clients and my coaching, my book is infused with it. Right. It's just like, because it's unconditional love. And it's a way to actually play with unconditional love. It's like, ooh, I allow it in through me and I give it to me and I give it over there and I love on that person, even when I don't want to,
I know, like I always envision like I call it Reiki rain and I just lean back and just the pillar of like that loving energy just washes down over me and I'm just like, oh, I'm being saturated. Cool. Just lean back a little, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nourishing. And
Yeah.
just as you said, like loving energy.
Are you a Reiki practitioner as well?
I am, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hyphens, as you were saying.
All the hyphens. I think that, we are curious spirits, right? And once you start to open yourself up to things, there's no turning back. Like you just continue to open more and more and more. And I love that part of the human experience.
I do too. And I think it's lovely to have a practice so on this journey of healing, sometimes we let go of behaviors and then we're kind of in this weird sort of vacuum of like, now what? Right? And there's that void that happens and it can feel very scary. It can feel disorienting and it can lead us to go back into our old behaviors. And so when we have a practice, and that can look like meditation to someone, that can look like prayers, that can look like Reiki, that can look like self-pleasuring. But when we have these practices to lean into, it's like that is what can take up that vacuum,
Yeah.
the space of the vacuum, that void. And then that's where we find our fullness. That's where we find, oh, here I am. Oh, that's how I'm supposed to be living my life. That's what's present.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautifully stated. Well, I'm curious if you could go back in time and give some words of wisdom to younger you. What age would you go and speak to, and what would you say?
Well, I just had this flash of being really little, and I was a really curvy little girl. And, the adults didn't realize it, but they were constantly commenting on my body.
Mm.
Like saying like, "Oh, you're a little fox. I wish my body was like Marla's." Like, I'm just like, "I'm 7."
Ah.
You know what I mean? Or I'm 10. I'm like, "What?" Like I got that early imprint that my body mattered
Uh-huh.
and that my body was being looked at,
Mhm.
right? And so it was kind of discombobulating. And then I can remember this moment. I had this flash of this moment, like in high school. I'm like, whoa, I think I'm gaining weight. Oh, that is not okay. Oh my gosh, that's my identity. Right. So maybe that's the moment I would have gone right in to that moment. And I would have said, oh, Marla, you're good. You're just do you. Just enjoy life, enjoy food, enjoy your pleasure. Like I would have come swept right into that. I think I was like 15 or 16. And I would just been like putting that arm around me and just being like, let's do this.
Oh.
And that's really the basis of my book. My book is called Befriend Yourself. And when I decided to write this book, there was this idea of like, what's the theme of my healing? What have I actually been doing this whole time? And what I realized that I've been doing is learning how to become my own best friend, learning how to be what I've needed. So
Mhm.
learning to listen, learning to um, listen, love, care, be considerate, show up for myself, take time with myself, and how when we really think we're talking about our words, right? Sovereignty and magical, if that could be the theme of it's like, would I do that to my own best friend?
Yeah.
Right. So, would I do that for me? Like, how do I care for myself?
Hmm. Yeah, I always love that point of like, would you speak to your beloved or beloveds in this manner? And when you list people that you love, how many times are you actually on that list as well?
Right.
Yeah. And I
Exactly.
know not very often. I'm like, yeah, sure, I love myself. I do all these things all the time to love myself. But when I write it out, you know, yeah.
Yeah, because there's so we things can look like self-care. Like we could hurt ourselves and then we can run around from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, right? But if we're not doing that from the energy of like I love myself, I'm caring for myself and every action I take is for care. It has a different energy. It's
Mm.
like, are we fixing ourselves or are we caring? And
Oof.
self-care can just look like it's just okay, I do that thing and I check it off the list,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've noticed that with myself. I've been doing this Kundalini yoga practice and I've just noticed like I will sometimes do the practice and I'm like, I could be doing this with a little bit, like I'm here.
Yeah.
Why don't I just like, fully breathe in and not just like go through the motions, right? So it's these moments of like, wow, let's not just go through the motions to check it off the list. Let's be here with myself and allow for the practice to love me.
Oh gosh, that's such a good point. I'm also a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I know the depth of which those practices can take you. And even as someone who's trained in it, very aware, I do my morning practice, and there's days where I'm like, I'm not fully invested in the way in which I should be inhaling or exhaling or doing this particular move 26 times. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just kind of zoned out. And I love
Right.
the idea of presence and intention with anything because it really brings you to, I feel like all the religious texts are telling us like be in now. Heaven is on earth now. It's in your mind. It's in what you're doing. Like just be here.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher as well. So we have a lot.
We have a lot in common, sister.
Yeah, how lovely. Yeah, and I would also wanna say, like, the flip side of that is, like, you're still showing up, and I'm still showing up,
Yeah.
right? And that's why we have practices, because sometimes we don't want to, but we know, and we just keep showing up, right? We keep showing up, and we keep learning how to lean in more. And then when we're not able to, we give ourselves grace.
Yeah.
We don't put ourselves down. So
Mm.
it's such this balance of like, sometimes it's like the discipline. It's like, and no, Marla. And sometimes it's like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah. And I think that's, just one of those moments of the best practice is just to pay attention to what one needs, right? Yeah. It
yes.
really needs. Like, I was not planning on doing like yoga nidra, doing a nap today, but I needed one, and I just surrendered to it. And, that allows me to show up for this recording right now in the space that I want to be in. And had I just charged through, I probably wouldn't be as energized and as connected. But I would have had 5 to 6 more things on my to-do list done.
Right. I know. Gosh, that darn to-do list.
Yeah. Mm. Well, Marla, what else can we learn about you and from you in this moment?
And I guess I would just say to everyone here is, really look at these places inside you that you just don't want to love.
Mm.
It's like you just putting we all have those like, I'm still at the same place, or why can't I get over this, or why does this keep showing up? And I think that we all have those, right? We all have that like theme, and sometimes like my theme was food and eating disorder and body image stuff, and that has lifted for me, right? But there's some other things that I'm still working with, right?
Mm.
And I think it's so important for us as a whole to realize that healing is very cyclical. And so when things come back, when we think that we are healed and,
Yeah.
that things come back around, because and I'm not, and I'm saying that I've had a lot of recovery. I'm still in this culture. I'm still in a woman's body. I still have my moments, right? I'm not above it all. I need to keep myself in check. I need to make sure that I'm not, like, and when those do come back around, it's like, okay, here's another piece of me to love. Okay, what am I getting from this?
Mm.
What's the deeper piece here? Right? So I think that is so important for us to realize that as far as our own healing, we are not a check it off the list. It doesn't work that way. We're not a to-do list to heal that. And then that's what I used to do. Okay, I'm going to heal that. Then I'm going to heal that. Then I'm going to be worthy to live my life.
Ah,
Right?
oh my gosh. Yes. I had that thought today. I was thinking about something, and now I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was driving. And I literally had the thought of like, oh, once I do this, then I will be able to open up to this. And I caught myself having that thought pattern. I was like, no, baby, you can be open to it right now. And it was
Mm.
such a beautiful, conscious moment. And
Oh,
and I live for those moments now where I catch myself,
oh,
you know.
so good. So good.
Yeah, because
And
it's
it's
we're
so
all about reprogramming, right? You got to find these weird programs, acknowledge them, and then dismantle.
Yeah, and I find like those are the moments where I'm so proud of myself.
Aw,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can like, okay, so I've done these things and I have these certifications, but the moments I lean in and I find something, it's like that is what is like the light up. It's like that's where the juice of life is. I just found another deeper piece of me.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the sap of life. Oh, for sure. I live for those aha moments.
Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful. Wow. Well, I have just loved learning from you and sharing this time space with you. And I would just love to allow you to share anything else that's really on your heart and that we have to know before we say bye.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put it out there to everyone. I really love connecting with people. I love to hear stories. I love to answer questions. So if you're on Instagram and you want to go to Instagram, go to Love Your Body, Love Yourself Always, and message me there and tell me, tell me your takeaways from this. Let me know what your story is. Also, you can go to my website. There's a contact form there. We can start a conversation, right? And because this is important to know that we don't have to do this all alone, right? We really don't.
Beautiful. Well, Marla, it's been such a joy. And yeah, I cannot wait to see your book that's going to be published here shortly. We're releasing this episode right before it's being published. So, where can everyone find the book?
Yes. So it is on Amazon, Befriend Yourself, Finding Freedom with Food and Peace with Your Body. It's on the Barnes and Nobles, the Goodreads, all of that. No, on October 1st on Amazon, you can get the Kindle version for 99 cents. Actually, the first and probably during that week, you can get it for 99 cents. So
Oh,
go
very
there and order it and then come back to my website, loveyourbodyloveyourself.com/book. And if you put in that you bought it, you'll see how to do that. You can get access to my Body Compassion Collective course. And then you can also get access to a workshop I'm doing
oh,
later on in
guys,
October.
magical, so generous, amazing. Thank you so much, Marla.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.